When I first saw that Vertigo was getting remade, my first thought was probably the same as all of yours. Why? Why? Why do we need Vertigo remade? Alfred Hitchcock's 1958 thriller is one of my favorite films of all time. I mean, to be honest, it may genuinely be number one. I adore Vertigo because it's, among other things, timeless. And many people agree that if something is timeless, it can appeal to any audience, regardless of time or place. However, Paramount has decided to remake Vertigo, with Robert Downey Jr. in the starring role. Can he add something new to the role that James Stewart couldn't? Can advances in technology help the film reach new audiences? I'm doubtful. I mean, the film's color cinematography is already perfect, and the film literally invented the dolly zoom, which has been seen in everything from Jaws to Ratatouille. And what about the director? Paramount has yet to announce who will be helming the remake, but can they really compare to Vertigo's original director, who is, Alfred Hitchcock? I guess my first reaction to Vertigo getting remade was that I was incredulous. However, I wanted to sit on the news for a little while before I made an episode about it. If I'm going to share my thoughts on this, I want them to be my complete thoughts. And honestly, my initial reaction may have jumped the gun a bit. Part of me is excited for this. I want to preface that this could very well be absolutely awful, but I want to take a look at some of the facts and see how this could possibly be much better than I originally thought, and could maybe be the start of a Hitchcock cinematic universe, something I never thought I would say. For starters, Hollywood remakes are usually driven by one thing: money. Money drove everything from the decision to remake The Lion King to the decision to remake Moana. And what gives me pause with Vertigo is that I don't see where the money in that is. As a classic Hollywood fan, I'll probably be seeing it, but there are probably a large portion of classic Hollywood fans that are just as likely to boycott the film entirely as they are to see it day one. And as much as I hate to say it, the classic Hollywood crowd is not quite as big as the Lion King crowd. And so I have to believe that Paramount is not remaking Vertigo with the intention of it being a summer blockbuster and heavy hitter. Beyond that, while I was first confused by Robert Downey Jr.'s involvement with the project, I think that too is a good sign. If the Iron Man actor is good at one thing, it's choosing roles. I mean, just look at Iron Man. He went from an actor in big movies that fans might be familiar with, to a household name synonymous with any other A-lister right now. And just as Robert signed on to the Marvel Cinematic Universe thinking it may be something special, I wonder how much he believes in the potential of a Hitchcock Cinematic Universe. As I've said a few times now, Vertigo is timeless, and it isn't even Hitchcock's most timeless film. Psycho is the quintessential horror film, and is perhaps the most influential film ever seen in the horror medium. North by Northwest arguably inspired James Bond, which is still receiving installments over 60 years later. And even a less popular Hitchcock film like Rope helped prove that camera techniques could tell a story just as well as any script could. My point is, there's a lot of potential in a Hitchcock universe. Imagine Norman Bates meeting the Bird's Melanie Daniels. Bates loves taxidermy, and particularly stuffed birds, something that Daniels would want nothing to do with. We could see Strangers on a Train taking place on the same train where the lady vanishes, and the vacationers from To Catch a Thief crossing paths with the vacationers looking for their lost son in The Man Who Knew Too Much. Maybe the lifeboat from Lifeboat is home to a full cast of mysterious characters, including a shadowy former lodger, or a man wrongfully convicted of murder who is finally just hoping to relax for a while. And beyond all of the 53 films Hitchcock directed himself, spin-offs of Hitchcock films have existed for close to a century. Psycho has become a franchise home to 3 sequels and a prequel television series, and The Lady Vanishes took 2 characters who were comic relief in the mystery thriller and placed them in an adventure comedy called Crook's Tour, where our bumbling heroes leave the train from Hitchcock's original and get mixed up with the Nazis. The point is, Hitchcock spin-offs are not a new concept either, and there are a number of Hitchcock properties with franchise potential. All it will take is an inventive filmmaker with a love for the material, and suddenly a forgotten Hitchcock film like Torn Curtain becomes a staple in the cinematic lineup, just as James Gunn did the same with the inconsequential Guardians of the Galaxy. And there's more to be excited about too. Although details are still rare right now, Stephen Knight is set to pen the script, and he's a hot-on-the-scene writer that is most well known for creating Peaky Blinders, and he's just been offered a Star Wars film. And although there is so much potential for future Hitchcock films, Paramount is not jumping the gun and going the way of the Dark Universe, where nearly a dozen actors and films are announced before their first ultimately comes out to horrific reviews. Let's take our time with this, see if it's any good, and go from there. If Robert Downey Jr. does ultimately play the role of Scotty Ferguson, he is a tall order to live up to one of the greatest actors' finest performances. We still don't know, too, who will play Madeline, or who will direct, or how this version can rework itself enough to stand aside the original, which at one point was considered the greatest film ever made. The point is, there's a long way to go before this Vertigo remake releases. For all we know, it may never be released. Back in 2015, David Fincher announced he was working on a Strangers on a Train remake with Ben Affleck and Gone Girl screenwriter Gillian Flynn. That didn't happen. But my point is not that we should be cautious or that this will or won't be good. My point is that there is still a lot of potential for Hitchcock films to reach a new generation. And I don't mean a new generation in the way that a 2016 film is remade in 2025 for a new generation. I mean that Vertigo could open millions of eyes to a very rich world of films from the 1950s and earlier. As said before, Hitchcock films are timeless, and giving a new generation of people a reminder of that is far from an inherently bad thing. But if this does well and Hollywood announces they're remaking 2001: A Space Odyssey next, I'll be right there alongside you, pitchfork in hand. If you enjoyed this video, I really appreciate a like or subscribe. I make all sorts of video essays on classic films and history, and I've got a lot of projects in the works, from little bite-sized videos like this to sprawling deep dives on entire filmographies, like a 2-part documentary on John Ford, where I contextualize and review literally every single John Ford film ever made. You can also find me on Letterboxd, where you can see me reviewing films before they make their way to the YouTube channel. And if none of that sounds good to you, don't sweat it. Until the next time, I'll at least see you at the movies.